So, Steve, what is your anticipation for Seattle this year? I guess Cano's a huge story. He's got to bounce back. But overall, what do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, they did a total reboot on the bullpen. 2 years ago, they had one of the best bullpens in baseball, and then everyone jumped on the wagon, and they were the chic preseason pick a year ago. And then last year, the bullpen was an unmitigated disaster. Obviously, Jack Zarenzik was fired as a general manager. Jerry DiPoto, the former Angels GM, was brought in, hired a brand-new manager in Scott Service, even though Service didn't have any managerial experience. And they've pretty much completely overhauled the bullpen. And obviously, Robinson Cano is a big cog in that lineup. He played last year with a double sports hernia. He had off-season surgery. Feels a lot better now. Was just terrible the first half of the season, Cano was, and then was lights out in the second half of the season. But at that point, the Mariners were pretty much out of it. I think, like a global perspective of this team, I think they're about an 81 team. That's not really a cop-out. It's kind of where they're at. I think if all things go well, their ceiling might be 90 wins, but I think this team kind of hovers around the 500 mark. I don't believe they're going to be in a situation like they were last year because so many things went wrong all at the same time. They finally have some ancillary hitters at the top and the bottom of the order to kind of complement the middle of the order with guys like Robinson Cano and Nelson Cruz and Kyle Seager. So for the first time in forever out here in Seattle, most of the questions are on the pitching side, and quite honestly, there aren't a ton of questions offensively, and that has never really been the case here over the last several years.
We expect a rebound from Robinson Cano. Obviously, last year when they brought in Nelson Cruz, it was like, this is just a perfect scenario for Robinson to have a hell of a year. He battled some injuries. He looks healthy now. Hell, spring, he had a 3-home-run game a couple of days ago. So we expect that rebound from Robinson Cano, who is their expected superstar offensively.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely fair characterization, and I think that's a fair point because now there isn't the excuse. You know, year one it was, okay, you're new to this, you're coming out to Seattle after all the years at Yankee Stadium, and then it was kind of an introduction. It was kind of a honeymoon year. Last year was a tough year for him, like I said. He battled some intestinal problems and had a double sports hernia and had surgery in the offseason, like I mentioned. He was just not the same player. You could see him getting his doors blown off on a pitch above his hands, and he was not the same Robbie Cano, but he certainly looks the part now, and everyone went gaga over that 3-home-run game you mentioned in the spring, but to me the most telling remark was afterwards when Cano said, listen, I can't tell you how good it feels to be able to do the things I used to be able to do again. And he really gave himself a clean bill of health. He looks the part. He is a different-looking player right now than he was last year. Discretion is a better part of valor, and part of me thinks, gosh, maybe he could have shut it down and preserved himself a little bit last year. But he wants to be out there. Yankee fans are obviously familiar with him. It's almost impossible to keep him off the field. And he just kind of had to grind one out last year. But there's definitely kind of a reset button with Robbie this year. And Nelson Cruz absolutely blew us away here in Seattle. I mean, he hit over 302 last year. He was a career 260 hitter. I mean, we all know his power numbers, but I was blown away how much better of a hitter Nelson Cruz was. He was good up the middle. He was good the other way every now and then. And obviously people are very excited here in Seattle about another year from Nelson Cruz.